We have one more speaker who I'm happy to introduce. His name is Travis Hosack. Travis will be sharing his experience with the Oddfellows United Nations Pilgrimage for Youth. He will elaborate on the process that he went through in order to go on the trip. Come on up here, Travis. And what activities he experienced while he was there. He will also deliver his speech with which he won the speech competition in New York. Travis is currently a grade 12 French immersion student at Catholic Central. He has many interests, including public speaking, acting, and community service. He takes lessons in speech arts, participates in musical productions, concert choir, student council, and recently started an Interact Club at CCH. He hopes to pursue a career in science and to continue having amazing experiences. Please welcome Travis.
Hello. First of all, I'd just like to say it's really great that you all have me here today for me to listen to me, share my experience, which was just incredible. I'd say it's probably one of the defining experiences of my life up until this point. So it was really something. So you've heard both at the opening procedures and just now that I went to the Oddfellows United Nations Pilgrimage for Youth. And the number one question I get when people hear that is, what is the Oddfellows United Nations Pilgrimage for Youth? So what it is, it's a program put on by the International Order of Oddfellows. And they send about 150 students from around the world on a tour of the East Coast of the US and some of Canada. And most of those students have to win a preliminary speech competition in their various jurisdictions in order to go on the trip, which I did last December with the Oddfellows Club of Lethbridge. I also participated the year before that, but I got runner-up, so. And both me and another student from CCH, Laura Lucier, won the speech competition in Lethbridge, and they sent us on the trip. So it was a 2-week trip. Like I said, we toured the East Coast of the US and Canada. We stopped in several locations: Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Gettysburg, Ottawa, Niagara Falls, and New York, which is where the speech competition was held. There were approximately 150 students from around the world, and we did a whole bunch of activities relating to, I would say, international citizenship. We had 3 different delegates from the UN speak to us about a variety of issues, such as weapons disarmament, sexual violence, really important issues like that. In New York, we stayed for 5 days in New York. We did several activities there. We visited the UN almost every single day. We got to see Something Rotten on Broadway, which was absolutely incredible. I definitely recommend it if you're ever in New York. We got to go to Ellis Island and visit the Statue of Liberty. We got to go up in the Empire State Building. So they really packed a lot into those 2 weeks. In terms of the speech competition itself, we had 2 hours in order to prepare a 5-minute speech about a specific topic that they gave us. The topic that we had this year was we had to convince members of our community to pursue the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which are being brought in. They might already be in place to replace the Millennium Development Goals. So, like I said, we had 2 hours to prepare. They held preliminaries where we were split up into groups of 12. We delivered our speeches, and then they chose people from those groups to come back for the finals. There were 6 finalists, including myself, three of which were from Alberta, so representing Alberta there. And then we had the finals the next day. Now, something that was slightly interesting about the finals is we did them in front of all of the 150 students, plus the judges were UN delegates. So that made it slightly more nerve-wracking. And that day I conveniently came down with the flu, so it was a fun time. So we all delivered our speeches, and all of the speeches were just incredible. There were a lot of bright minds in that program, and the judges thought mine was the best out of them, and I am extremely fortunate because I won a $1,000 US scholarship from winning that. And yeah, I was just blown away. So I'll deliver the speech that I delivered there now. Hopefully you enjoyed as much as they did. I did my speech about climate change, and I related several goals that had to do with climate change in my speech. So I hope you like it. When is the last time you saw a polar bear? Remember well, because it may be your last. Last, a word imbued with such closure, such finality. Last wishes, last words, last meal. We use the word last to describe many things when they near their final days. Last is a word being used more and more frequently to describe our environment. Last glaciers, last Antarctic ice, last polar bear. These are all beautiful things that won't last if we don't intervene. Unless the world, every community in every country, big and small, decides to act as one, we will not be successful in preventing the worst. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals provide a real shot at preventing these needless tragedies. This is our last chance. Climate change is a serious issue that requires immediate action, which is why I believe Goal 13, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts, is important. However, to do this, we must first look to implement policies in line with several other goals, specifically Goals 7 and 12. Where I come from, Alberta, Canada, the economy is very much dependent on oil. The tar sands in the north of the province make up much of the oil used in Canada, and according to Environment Canada, 8.5% of the entire country's carbon emissions. If my province were a country, its per capita greenhouse gas emissions would be much higher than any other country in the world, according to the Pembina Institute. So you can see why an initiative to match Goal 7 to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all is necessary. The leaders of individual communities, my province, and Canada itself must be convinced to get on board. By investing into clean, renewable energy such as wind power, solar power, and biofuel, we can create a diverse new set of employment opportunities. Yes, the economy may suffer when oil becomes less of a factor. but the payoff will be even greater than lower carbon emissions. It will allow Alberta to function without its economic crutch, oil. Alberta is fully able to meet the 2030 deadline of increasing the amount of renewable energy in the world. But in the end, the only time change can truly be made is once members of communities, people like you and me, decide to act. One way of going about this is to manage usage of electricity in order to cut back on the amount of oil needed, which falls in line with goal number 12, ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. By implementing laws and regulations that fall in line with this goal, we can not only encourage individual civilians to adopt less wasteful lives, but large corporations would have to begin reducing their emissions as well. By providing subsidies to corporations and civilians who take measures towards reducing carbon emissions, even the largest offenders, being corporations, will have motivation to reduce their emissions. Like I previously mentioned, the work required to turn climate change around is large, but with resolve and determination, it is possible. If we want the world to have a definite future, our actions at this point are critical. As Chief Seattle said, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are imperative in determining what that future Earth looks like. As we look to the future, we must remember that this is humanity's first world, so let's not make it our last. Thank you.
Well, you can see that we are definitely in good hands with articulate young gentlemen like that looking after things.